Attention, attention, look at this. The lost script of Madame Theia is leaked. This is what the movie was like before it was completely changed. Some say it's worse. We'll discuss it after the intro. Stay tuned. Hello, Pop Culture Society. Let's discuss Madame. It's quite surprising, isn't it? In the year of grace, May 2025, we're still talking about Madame Theia. Because he, Daniel Rickman, the one who takes from where there isn't and puts where it doesn't fit, revealed he put it out there on the wall. He dropped this one, threw out the bold move, spread it all over the place. The ideas for the Madame Theia script that were discarded during the film's production. Daniel Rickman said that originally the movie would feature Tom Holland's Spider-Man. The film would be part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but it would take place in the Marvel Cinematic Universe's past, and Tom Holland would make an appearance right at the beginning. But later we would find out that actually the movie takes place before Tom Holland, before Peter Parker is born, Tom Holland a little before and then after his birth, and that the whole structure of the movie would be Madame T and her spider friends. Future spider friends trying to protect little Peter Parker from the villain. So it's that kind of chase with the baby in their arms while everyone is being chased by a terrible villain. Of course, it didn't turn out that way. The movie isn't even in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The movie isn't part of any timeline, not even within the Venom verse or the Morbius verse or whatever verse. It's a film that takes place in its own little world. We're talking about Ben Parker, but the things we see in this movie don't really match up with what we see in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So this idea of him being Peter Parker is vague in Madame Theia, and it's never confirmed at any point. There are even some joke elements that are actually kind of weird. But when we look at this whole idea, it seems like it's something unexpected, something shocking, something we've never seen before. And no, for many months before Madame Theia was released, people were already talking about the story of the boy Peter Parker, that it would be a story in the style of the Terminator, with some villain who has knowledge of the future. Would try to assassinate baby Peter Parker, his mother, before he became Spider-Man, so there wouldn't be problems in the future. And then they took out the baby, took out the whole story about the baby, and made Peter Parker's mother still pregnant. To focus on the 3 Spider-Girls, because these 3 girls would be responsible for the villain's death, and the villain wanted to assassinate these girls while they were still young. That became the final script for Madame T, meaning they removed all the connection with Homera and Peter Parker and put in the trio of girls who would become Spider-Women in the future. So we can see these structures, the 2 structures where there really was some intention to use the past of Peter Parker, so they couldn't use Tom Holland because they didn't have authorization anymore, and it would actually be a very creative way to work with Spider-Man without having Spider-Man in the movie. But according to what Daniel Rickman said, it was Marvel Studios that was against it and vetoed it. Marvel Studios said that Spider-Man can only appear in Sony Marvel Studios movies, and that a pure Sony movie can't have Spider-Man. That was outside the contract, so Marvel would have vetoed Tom Holland's participation and any deeper mention of Spider-Man in Madame Web, leaving everything just as a suggestion. I think this story is funny because it seems like Marvel Studios is being portrayed as the villain who just made this up now, and we're seeing movie after movie after movie that the use of Spider-Man is very restricted, that Sony can't use Tom Holland wherever they want. Tom Holland's Spider-Man only appears once in a Sony movie, which is in the post-credits scene of Venom 2, where they start to set up the story for the 3rd Spider-Man movie, but it ends up not happening. In the end, Venom and Spider-Man never meet. So I don't believe that the writers involved in the Sony and Theia project wouldn't be aware that they couldn't use Spider-Man in this movie. They wrote a script to see if it would stick, to see if it would get approved. Maybe if it works, it works. Those guys knew. They clearly know it's impossible. So my conclusion is that Daniel Rickman is kind of trying to clear his name. Because Daniel Rickman was one of those who, a long time ago, used to... He kept speculating about the Baby Parker story, repeatedly saying it would happen. However, since the story took a different turn and didn't unfold as predicted, incomplete input, direction. Now it's very convenient to come and say, oh no, it was, but then they changed it. It was, but then they rewrote the script, and it's still my fault. As an insider, I gave the correct information, but the information changed. Oh yeah, it's very easy to be an insider. Even I am an insider. I just say any nonsense here, and then when it doesn't happen, I say, yeah, but the original script, man, you should have read it. Hold on. I can even imagine that at some point there was an attempt to make a Spider-Man without Spider-Man. To pull this trick, to do this move, this dribble, to legally get around the contracts. Maybe there was some lawyer who said no. According to Clause 5, Section 4, you can't do this. At most, just call the guy Ben. That's it, Ben Parker. It could be any of the Parkers in the world. Daniel Ricker mentions that in the last draft of the movie Venom, there was a scene where Eddie Brock and Venom experimented with a kid named Peter Parker to simulate Spider-Man's origin. The boy had an allergic reaction and had to be hospitalized. He asks if anyone remembers this. There was a whole scene. That scene isn't even close to being in the movie. There's not even a young Peter Parker kid in the movie, and the insider's stuck with this idea until the end. Now, it's really easy to say, yeah, I had access to the first drafts of Venom, and there really was the Spider-Boy, but they gave up, they backed out, and then it was just that family with the guy who's not the Lizard. Well, you have to be careful because these guys are slick. They say something that has a double meaning, and when it doesn't happen, they have an escape plan, a way to get out of taking responsibility for lying to you just to boost their Patreon. So, Daniel Rickman, I'm watching. I'm seeing what you're doing. Daniel Rickman, I'm watching what you're doing. I'm seeing what you're up to. Now, there are some little cups showing up. A cup with a Daily Bugle logo that has references to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There's Drax. There's a bunch of stuff. They claim that the Theia movie was in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but it doesn't prove anything. It only proves that Gwinga, you know? What that proves is that some intern said, hey, let's make the cups look like they're from the Daily Bugle. Let's do it. Then the guy put a bunch of references in the Marvel Cinematic Universe there. He searched the internet, found some pictures, and used them. The text remained there for promotional purposes, unrelated to the script. The script itself does not contain that content. A fabricated Marvel newspaper article shouldn't be trusted. The mentioned cup doesn't exist and its capabilities are uncertain. Thanks for watching this video about a pop culture topic. I'll return with more content soon. After the video, click the channel options to continue watching. See you later. Bye. Thank you for watching.